That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun hung low over the joint base in the arid stretch of Nevada, casting long shadows across the training grounds. Dust swirled in lazy eddies as the K-9 unit assembled in formation, their boots thudding in unison against the packed earth. Sergeant Elena Vasquez, the lead handler, stood at the front, her posture ramrod straight under the weight of her tactical vest. Beside her, Rex, her 12-year-old German shepherd, sat alert, his grey muzzle catching the first glints of light. The dog's ears twitched at the distant hum of a Black Hawk warming up on the helipad, but he held his position without a sound, a testament to years of disciplined partnership. "Unit, attention!" Vasquez's voice cut through the morning chill, sharp and commanding. The handlers snapped to, their dogs mirroring the motion with trained precision. This was the 47th Search and Rescue K-9 detachment. A specialized team embedded within the Army's medical response units. They trained for the worst: collapsed structures, chemical spills, urban disasters where human senses failed. Today's exercise simulated a post-earthquake rubble field, mock debris piled high with buried mannequins to mimic casualties. Captain Marcus Hale, the detachment's commanding officer, paced the line, his insignia gleaming on his collar. A veteran of deployments in the Middle East, Hale enforced protocol with the precision of a surgeon. "Handlers, report readiness," he ordered, his eyes scanning each pair, man and dog, bound by invisible threads of trust. "Handler Reyes and Nitro, ready," came the first response, a young specialist with his Belgian Malinois at heel. One by one, they sounded off until it reached the end of the line. Private First Class Liam Carter, the unit's combat medic, shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't a handler, but as the embedded medical support, he shadowed the drills, ensuring the dog's vitals stayed stable under stress. At 28, Carter had joined the Army to escape a dead-end life in rural Ohio, drawn to the medic's code of saving lives without the frontline chaos. His kit hung heavy on his shoulder: bandages, IVs, and a defibrillator, all standard for a team that might pull live victims from the brink. "Carter, medical support ready," he said, his voice steady but lacking the handler's crisp edge. Rex's nose wrinkled slightly as Carter passed, catching the faint scent of antiseptic from his gloves. The dog's eyes, dulled by age but sharp with instinct, fixed on him for a beat longer than necessary. Hale nodded approval. "Begin insertion. Simulate primary search. Time 0800 hours." The whistle blew, and the unit moved as one, dogs straining at leashes, handlers issuing low commands. "Such," Vasquez murmured to Rex. "Search in German, the language of their bond." The old shepherd trotted forward, his paws navigating the jagged foam blocks and chain-link mock rubble with ease. Carter trailed the group, clipboard in hand, monitoring for signs of exhaustion. The dogs were the stars here, but Hale ran a tight ship, no shortcuts, no sentiment. "Keep formation," Hale barked over the radio static. "Eyes on your partner. We're not playing games. This is how we save lives in the field." As the exercise unfolded, the air filled with the rhythmic pant of dogs and the crunch of gravel under boots. Nitro alerted first, pawing at a buried mannequin, his handler marking the spot with a fluorescent flag. Cheers rippled through the unit, brief and restrained. Rex, slower now in his later years, circled a section of debris, sniffing methodically. His tail wagged once, a subtle signal to Vasquez. But then, from the periphery, came a low chuckle. Carter, kneeling to check a handler's blood pressure, glanced up. Specialist Derek Voss, a burly infantryman cross-trained on the K-9 rotations, leaned against a mock wall, eyeing Rex. Voss was the unit's joker, always testing boundaries with a smirk that grated on the more disciplined members. "Look at that old mutt," he muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Grey as a ghost. Bet he couldn't smell his own dinner anymore." Vasquez shot him a glare, but held her tongue, focused on Rex. The dog paused, head tilting toward Voss, but resumed his search without breaking stride. Carter, however, felt a flicker of irritation. He'd seen Rex in action during a live drill last month, pulling a simulated casualty from a collapsed trench when the younger dogs faltered. "Easy on the commentary, Voss," Carter said quietly, rising to his feet. "He's earned that muzzle." Voss snorted, stepping closer to the search area. The exercise was winding down, handlers calling their dogs back for debrief. But Voss, emboldened by the casual end-of-drill vibe, crouched near Rex and reached out. "Come on, Grandpa, show us what you got." He ruffled the dog's grey fur roughly, teasing the muzzle with a gloved finger, as if testing for a reaction. Rex tolerated it, but his body stiffened, a low rumble building in his throat. Not aggression, but discomfort. "Stand down, specialist," Vasquez snapped, clipping Rex's leash. "That's not protocol." Hale's voice crackled over the radio. "Voss, report to my position, now." The captain's tone brooked no argument, his face a mask of controlled displeasure as he watched from the overlook. Carter watched Voss saunter off, unrepentant, while Vasquez soothed Rex with a quiet pat. The dog's eyes met Carter's for a moment, steady and knowing, as if acknowledging the medic's unspoken defense. In the rigid world of ranks and routines, such moments were rare, fleeting glimpses of the human element beneath the uniforms. But as the unit dispersed for morning chow, Carter couldn't shake the unease. Voss's tease was minor, a breach of respect in a unit where loyalty to the K-9s was sacred. Yet it lingered, a crack in the chain of command. Little did they know, that same afternoon, a real call would come in, a training accident at a remote site, rubble from a collapsed mock bunker trapping a civilian contractor. And Rex, the grey-muzzled veteran, would lead them straight to the impossible. The base siren wailed at precisely 1300 hours, pulling the detachment from their brief respite. Hale assembled them in the briefing tent. Maps spread across the table, the scent of stale coffee mingling with the earthy smell of dog fur. "Earthquake simulation went south," he said flatly. "Structural failure. One unaccounted for under tons of concrete. We're deploying with full medical response." Vasquez nodded, Rex already at her side, his nose twitching toward the door. Carter packed his kit swiftly, the weight of it grounding him. As they loaded into the Humvees, engines rumbling to life, Voss climbed in beside him, flashing a grin. "Hope the old dog's up for it. Wouldn't want him slowing us down." Carter met his gaze evenly. "Rex has more field time than you've got deployment, specialist. Save the jokes for after we pull someone out alive." The convoy rolled out under a sky turning heavy with dust clouds, the radio chatter steady. Coordinates ETA, stand by for casualty assessment. In the back of the lead vehicle, Rex lay calm, his grey muzzle resting on Vasquez's boot. The bond between them was unspoken, forged in countless drills and real crises, a loyalty that didn't question orders, only executed them with unwavering focus. Arriving at the site, the air thickened with the acrid tang of broken stone and diesel. The rubble field loomed, a chaotic pile of rebar and shattered slabs from the botched demo. Handlers fanned out, dogs on short leads, while engineers marked safe zones. Carter set up triage under a tarp, his hands steady as he prepped splints and monitors. "Primary search commence," Hale ordered. The younger dogs moved first, Nitro and the others weaving through the debris, their alerts coming quick but scattered, false positives from the dust. Rex went last, Vasquez guiding him to a shadowed crevice where the pile seemed impenetrable. The dog circled once, twice, his movements deliberate despite the years. Then, without warning, he sat, the universal alert signal pawing insistently at a slab half buried under twisted metal. Vasquez knelt, listening. "Possible," she radioed. "Marking Sector 3. Carter approached with his scanner, Voss trailing behind with a pry bar. "Told you," Voss muttered, eyeing Rex. "Lucky sit. Could be nothing." But as the team dug in, the faint beep of a buried transponder confirmed it. A survivor, pulse weak but present. The medic in Carter surged forward, directing the lift. Hours blurred into coordinated effort, sweat-soaking uniforms, commands echoing over the grind of machinery. When they finally extracted the contractor, a middle-aged engineer with crushed legs and labored breaths, Carter was there, stabilizing him on site. As the helo lifted off with the casualty, Hale clapped Vasquez on the shoulder. "Good work, Sergeant." Rex pulled through. She nodded, stroking the dog's head, but Carter caught Voss's sidelong glance, the tease unspoken now, overshadowed by the reality of what the old mutt had done. In the quiet aftermath, as the sun dipped low, Carter realized this was just the beginning, a test not of the dog, but of the men who served beside him. Loyalty, it seemed, demanded more than orders. It required seeing the strength in what others dismissed. The debrief tent hummed with the low murmur of voices as the detachment filed in, dust-caked boots leaving faint tracks on the canvas floor. The air carried the sharp bite of iodine from Carter's medical kit, mingled with the faint, musky scent of wet dog fur from the search. Outside, the rotors of the medevac Blackhawk faded into the distance, leaving a tense silence, broken only by the occasional crackle of the base radio, updating casualty status. Captain Hale stood at the head of the folding table, his notebook open, pen poised like a weapon. The contractor was stable en route to the field hospital, legs fractured, but alive thanks to the timely alert. "Report sequence," Hale began, his voice even, eyes moving methodically from handler to handler. Vasquez sat first, Rex at her feet, the dog's grey muzzle resting on his paws as he panted softly. The shepherd's sides rose and fell in rhythm, a quiet recovery from the exertion. "Sergeant Vasquez, walk us through Rex's alert." Vasquez leaned forward, her uniform still streaked with rubble grit. Insertion at 14:05 hours. Primary sweep by Nitro and team yielded no confirms. Rex entered Sector 3 at 14:20. Visual scan negative, but he fixated on the crevice, 3 circles, then sit and paw. Transponder ping at 14:32, no false indicators. Hale nodded, jotting notes. Solid execution. Medical, Carter. Stabilization details. Carter straightened in his chair, the weight of his kit now stowed beside him, his hands, still bearing faint smears of blood from the extraction, folded on the table. Patient presented with bilateral tibia-fibula fractures, possible internal bleeding. Administered morphine, 10 milligrams IV, and saline bolus. Pulse ox at 88% on scene, stabilized to 94 before evac. No signs of crush syndrome yet. The captain's gaze lingered on him a moment, approving. "Efficient. Engineers confirm the slab's position. Without that alert, we'd have been digging blind." He turned to the group. "This was a live op, not a drill. Protocol held. Questions?" Specialist Voss shifted in his seat at the far end, his pry bar propped against the table leg like an afterthought. The infantryman had muscled through the lift with the others, but his contributions had been minimal, more oversight than action. Now, with the adrenaline ebbed, his earlier smirk returned, subdued but present. "Sir, just one. That old dog's nose held up. I'll give him that. But in a real hot zone, with chem haze or smoke, betting on grey whiskers feels like rolling dice." The tent fell quiet, the words hanging like smoke. Vasquez's jaw tightened, her hand dropping instinctively to Rex's collar, fingers tracing the worn leather. The dog lifted his head slightly, ears perking at the shift in tone, but he remained still, eyes scanning the faces with that unflinching calm. Hale's pen paused. "Specialist Voss, your input is noted, but speculation has no place here. Rex's record speaks. 8 confirms in 5 years, 0 misses. Focus on facts." Voss shrugged, leaning back. "Facts are, sir, we're rotating fresh blood next quarter. Efficiency matters. No offense to the vet." Carter felt the heat rise in his chest, a controlled burn honed from years in the field. As medic, he wasn't in the handler chain, but he'd logged more hours monitoring K-9 vitals than Voss had on rotations. The specialist jab wasn't new. Voss had a habit of needling the edges of protocol, testing who would push back. But today, after the pull, it landed differently. Carter glanced at Rex, the dog's gaze meeting his briefly, a silent acknowledgement that needed no words. "With respect, sir," Carter interjected, his voice level, "Rex's age doesn't degrade his olfactory acuity. Field studies show peak detection holds past 10 years in controlled pairs. Dismissing that risks the team." Hale's eyes flicked between them, assessing. "Noted, Private, but chain of command. Handlers lead on K-9 ops. Voss, you're on logistics next drill. Dismissed." The group rose as one, chairs scraping softly. Vasquez led Rex out first, the dog's nails clicking on the ground in steady cadence. Carter lingered, packing his notes, the tent flap rustling in the evening breeze that carried hints of creosote from the desert beyond. Voss brushed past him on the way out, close enough for Carter to catch the faint whiff of sweat and exertion. "Easy, Doc. Just calling it like I see it. Dog's loyal, but loyalty don't dig through concrete alone." Carter didn't respond, letting the words settle. Outside, the base lights flickered on as dusk deepened, casting long shadows over the motor pool where Humvees idled for maintenance. He made his way to the kennel block, a low concrete structure humming with the soft whines of the other dogs settling in. Vasquez was there, hosing down Rex's paws, the water sheeting off his fur in rivulets that gleamed under the floodlights. "Captain, shut him down, quick," she said without looking up, her tone neutral. "But Voss has pull. His uncle's a colonel in logistics. Watch your step." Carter nodded, kneeling to check Rex's hydration levels with a quick swab. The dog's tongue lolled out, warm and trusting against the cotton. "He's solid. Heart rate baseline. That alert saved a life today." Vasquez straightened, coiling the hose. "More than that. Contractor's family sent a wire already. Grateful. But Hale's pushing for a full review. OSS might audit the rotation if Voss keeps stirring." The old shepherd's syndrome, OSS, the bureaucratic label for aging K-9s facing mandatory retirement. It wasn't just medical, it was policy. A line drawn to streamline units. Rex was 3 months from evaluation, his grey muzzle a visible marker. Carter had read the reports. Dogs retired too early, handlers burned out from retraining. But protocol was protocol. Duty demanded adherence, even when instinct proved otherwise. That night in the dim glow of the barracks, Carter lay on his bunk, the distant bark of a sentry dog echoing through the thin walls. His mind replayed the dig. Voss's pry bar slipping once, nearly jamming the lift while Rex had sat unmoving, pointing true. The medic's oath was to preserve life, but here blurred lines emerged. Defending a partner wasn't in the manual. Sleep came fitfully, broken by the base's nocturnal rhythm, patrols crunching gravel, generators thrumming like a heartbeat. Morning brought routine with mechanical precision. Réveillé at 0500, the unit forming up in the chow hall's shadow, steam rising from mess trays of oatmeal and MRE packets. Hale addressed them over coffee, black and scolding. Yesterday's success sets the bar. Today, secondary drills. Focus on endurance. Carter, shadow Vasquez. Voss, assist engineering on barriers. As they moved to the training field, the sun crested the horizon, painting the rubble mocks in gold. Rex trotted ahead, his pace unhurried but sure. But midway through the setup, Voss veered close again, dropping a heavy slab with a thud that sent dust billowing. "Hey, Doc," he called, wiping his brow. "Bet you $10 the old boy's first alert today is a rock." Grey muzzles fooling no one. Carter paused, securing his medkit to a post. The challenge hung, a subtle insubordination masked as banter. Around them, handlers tuned out, focused on their pairs, but Vasquez's shoulders tensed. Duty pulled Carter one way, report it, maintain order. Conscience tugged another, call it out, defend the bond that had just proven its worth. Stakes like that lose ops. "Specialist," Carter replied evenly, meeting Voss's eyes. "Rex detects what we miss, always has." Voss chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. As the whistle blew for start, Rex moved into the field, nose to ground, oblivious to the undercurrent. Yet in that moment Carter sensed the ripple, a defiance brewing not from the dog, but from the men sworn to serve beside him. The chain of command held firm, but cracks, once ignored, could fracture under pressure. And in the military's unyielding world, pressure was the only constant. The whistle's sharp trill cut through the morning haze, signaling the start of the endurance drill. Handlers released their leads in unison, dogs fanning out across the expanded rubble field like shadows detaching from their masters. The air hummed with controlled energy, panting breaths, the scrape of paws on simulated debris, and the low murmur of commands in German. Such, voran, words that bridged species in the language of precision. Carter positioned himself at the periphery, chronometer in hand, eyes tracking vital signs on his portable monitor. The sun climbed higher, baking the earth until heat waves shimmered off the foam blocks, carrying the dry scent of sagebrush from the surrounding Nevada flats. Vasquez moved with Rex at a steady clip, the shepherd's grey muzzle dipping low as he quartered the ground methodically. No rush in his gait. Age had taught him economy, every step purposeful. The younger dogs darted ahead, their alerts coming in bursts, Nitro pouring a buried flag at the first marker, his handler marking it with a nod and a quiet gut. Cheers were absent. This was endurance, not spectacle. Hale observed from the command post, binoculars steady, his silhouette rigid against the chain-link fence. Voss, assigned to engineering support, hauled barriers with two others, his movements efficient but laced with distraction. He glanced toward Rex every few minutes, wiping sweat from his brow with a forearm that left a streak of dust. Carter noted it peripherally, focusing on logging hydration breaks. The medic's role was support, ensure no one, human or K-9, faltered under load, but Voss's earlier challenge lingered, a burr under the uniform. Halfway through the first circuit, Rex paused at a cluster of interlocking slabs, his nose working the air in tight circles. Vasquez knelt beside him, hand hovering near his flank without touching, trusting the bond to guide. The dog sat abruptly, paw extended, his alert clear and unhesitating. "Confirm Sector 7, Vasquez radioed, her voice calm over the static. Engineers converged, Voss among them, pry bar in grip. As they wedged the slab, Carter approached to monitor for strain. The lift went smooth, revealing the mannequin beneath, transponder beeping steadily. Hale's voice crackled through, "Time, 23 minutes, solid." Voss straightened, breathing heavy, and shot Carter a look. Luck again. That sit was slow. Another minute, and we'd have bypassed it. He clapped the dust from his gloves, the sound sharp in the brief lull. Carter kept his tone neutral, clipping his monitor back to his vest. "Slow and sure beats fast and wrong, specialist. Rex's hit rate is 100% this quarter." Vasquez overheard, leading Rex to a water station nearby. The dog lapped steadily, water dripping from his muzzle onto the parched ground. She met Carter's eyes with a subtle nod, gratitude unspoken, but present in the set of her shoulders. In the K-9 world, medics like him were the quiet guardians, bridging the gap between handler instinct and protocol. The drill pressed on, rotations tightening as fatigue set in. Dogs' tongues lolled longer, handlers' commands grew terser. By the second hour, the field resembled a battlefield of exhaustion. Sweat-soaked collars, boots caked in grit, the metallic tang of overheated metal from the barriers. Carter administered electrolyte tabs to a handler showing early dehydration, his gloved hands precise. "Sip slow," he instructed. "Pace it." Voss, now tasked with resetting a debris pile, veered closer to Rex's path during the next sweep. The specialist accidentally nudged a loose block into the dog's line, the foam tumbling with a muffled thud. Rex skirted it without breaking stride, but Vasquez halted, her eyes narrowing. "Clear the field, Voss. That's interference." "Slipped," Voss replied, shrugging as he righted it. "No harm. Dog didn't even flinch. See? Grey muzzles got him doddering." The words landed like a misfired round, drawing glances from nearby handlers. Hale, monitoring from afar, lowered his binoculars but held position. Protocol allowed minor corrections, not immediate escalation. Carter felt the tension coil in his gut, a medic's instinct to intervene warring with rank. Voss wasn't his subordinate, but the jab targeted the unit's core. Respect for the partners who detected what eyes and tech missed. As Rex resumed, alerting on the next target without hesitation, Carter stepped forward. "Specialist, focus on your sector. Distractions cost time and lives." Voss turned fully, his stance widening, pry bar resting on his shoulder like a challenge. "You volunteering to handle, Doc? Or just playing knight for the old-timer? Save the lectures for sick call." The exchange drew Hale's attention now, the captain striding over with measured steps, boots crunching gravel. "Report!" he demanded, eyes flicking between them. "Minor interference, sir," Vasquez interjected smoothly, keeping Rex leashed at her side. "Field's clear now." Hale assessed, his gaze lingering on Voss. "Logistics detail, not search. Stay in lane." "Specialist," to Carter. "Medical, maintain oversight, no side actions." Dismissed with a nod, Voss moved off, but the undercurrent simmered. The drill concluded at 1100 hours, the unit collapsing into formation for cooldown. Dogs received rubdowns, handlers logged data, the air thick with the scent of cooling earth and damp fur. Carter checked Rex last. The shepherd's vitals steady, heart rate 92, respiration normal. "He's gold," he murmured to Vasquez. She wiped her brow, uniform clinging. "Voss is pushing. Hale's aware, but OSS reviews looming. One bad drill, and Rex is out." Carter nodded, stowing his kit. The medic's oath extended beyond humans. He'd sworn to preserve all assets in the field. But protocol boxed him, report informally. Risk Voss's retaliation, call it out, invite scrutiny. As the group dispersed toward the mess tent, the sun beating down relentlessly, Carter watched Rex trot beside Vasquez, grey muzzle lifted to the breeze. The dog's loyalty was absolute, unmarred by doubt. For the men, it was murkier, a test of conscience amid the ranks. That afternoon, in the quiet of the medical bay, Carter reviewed the logs. Voss's slip had added 30 seconds to the circuit, negligible alone, but cumulative. A pattern emerged, subtle disruptions, masked as error. The base radio buzzed with updates from the contractor's recovery. Full mobility expected, a testament to Rex's nose. Yet within the detachment, whispers grew. Was the old dog a liability, or Voss the real risk? Evening formation brought Hale's address, the captain's voice carrying over the parade ground as floodlights hummed to life. Endurance held. Tomorrow, joint op with demo team, real-time integration. Standards remain non-negotiable. His eyes swept the line, pausing on Voss and Carter. Unity executes. Division fails. As the unit broke, Carter lingered by the kennels, the soft whines of settling dogs a counterpoint to the night's chill. Vasquez joined him, Rex curling at her feet. "You're in it now," she said quietly. "Voss sees you as the weak link." Carter met her gaze, the weight of decision settling. Duty demanded silence, obedience to chain. But conscience, forged in the rubble's shadow, urged action. The grey muzzle at rest below them rose and fell evenly, a reminder. True detection pierced more than stone. It exposed the fractures in men. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The floodlights cast a stark glow over the joint operations field as dawn broke on the following morning, their hum a constant underscore to the detachment's pre-mission assembly. Mist clung to the low-lying scrub, dampening the boots of the handlers as they formed up beside the demo team's armored vehicles. The air held a crisp edge, laced with the faint ozone of impending rain and the sharper bite of C4 residue from overnight prep. Captain Hale stood at the center, clipboard in hand, his breath visible in the chill as he outlined the integration drill. Simulated urban breach with live explosives. K-9s tasked for casualty location amid controlled chaos. Primary objective, rapid search post-blast, Hale stated, his voice carrying without amplification. Handlers, maintain leash discipline until clear. Medical stage triage at exfil point. Demo leads on timing. 30-second window from boom to first alert. His eyes scanned the ranks, lingering on the cross-unit mix. The 47th's familiar faces blended with the engineers' heavier builds, their vests bulging with detonators and seismic sensors. Vasquez positioned Rex at the edge of the formation, the shepherd's grey muzzle twitching at the unfamiliar scents wafting from the demo crates, cordite and hydraulic oil. Carter, kit slung over one shoulder, checked his inventory. Tourniquets, oxygen masks, a K-9 specific EpiPens. The medic's mind was a ledger of contingencies, but the previous day's undercurrents gnawed at the edges. Voss's disruptions, the unspoken rift. As assigned, Voss was paired with the demo crew today, his infantryman bulk suited to hauling charges, but Carter caught the specialist's glance toward Rex, a flicker of calculation in his eyes. "Mount up," Hale ordered. The unit loaded into the lead Humvee convoy, engines growling to life with a throaty rumble that vibrated through the seats. Radio chatter filled the cabin, frequencies synced, call signs confirmed. Rex lay steady beside Vasquez, his body heat warming her boot, a silent anchor amid the jostle. Carter sat across, monitoring the dog's subtle shifts, ears forward, no signs of stress. Voss rode in the trailing vehicle, out of sight but not out of mind. The site was a quarter-mile out, a mock urban sprawl of concrete barriers and chain-link facades rigged for collapse. Engineers emplaced charges with mechanical precision, wires snaking like veins across the ground. The K-9 team dismounted at the perimeter, dogs heeling tight as the blast countdown echoed over the speakers. 10, 9... The detonation came muffled, a deep thud that shook the earth, sending plumes of dust skyward. Shrapnel whined harmlessly into sand berms, and the structure buckled in controlled sections, rubble cascading in waves that buried the hidden mannequins deep. "Clear for insertion," Hale radioed. Handlers advanced in pairs, leashes taut, commands low and urgent. Nitro led the first wave, his alerts pinpointing surface-level targets amid the settling haze. The air thickened with pulverized stone, stinging eyes and coating throats. But the dogs pressed on, noses filtering the chaos. Vasquez hung back with Rex, per protocol for the veteran, conserving energy for deeper sectors where scents layered thick. Carter trailed the medical line, portable scanner at the ready, its screen glowing faintly in the dust. From the demo flank, Voss emerged with a toolkit, assigned to clear paths for secondary sweeps. But as the primary alerts wrapped, he veered into the search zone unbidden, pry bar in hand, ostensibly to shift a fallen beam. "Making way for the pros," he called to no one in particular, his voice carrying over the grind of shifting debris. Rex entered the field then, Vasquez guiding him to a shadowed trench where the collapse had formed a jagged maw. The dog quartered slowly, paws navigating rebar spikes with care, his grey muzzle inches from the ground. The scent cone was muddled here, explosives residue overpowering the faint chemical markers on the mannequins. But Rex persisted, circling a compacted pile that the younger dogs had bypassed as unstable. Then the sit, deliberate, paw extended toward a seam in the concrete. Vasquez marked it instantly. Sector 4, positive alert. Engineers converged, Voss among them, his bar wedging the edge. But as the lift began, he overextended, shoving too hard, the beam groaning under the force. A secondary shift rippled through the pile, fresh rubble tumbling and pinning Vasquez's leg briefly against a shard. "Stand down!" Carter shouted, lunging forward, his training kicking in. He dropped beside her, assessing the gash on her calf, superficial but bleeding steadily through the fabric. "Pressure here," he directed, applying a field dressing with swift raps. Rex sat unmoved, alerting fixed, his eyes locked on the seam as if willing the team to dig. Hale arrived in seconds, face etched with command steel. "Voss, report your position. This is search op, not demo override." "Clearing hazards, sir," Voss replied, straightening, bar still in grip. Dust clung to his uniform, but his tone held that edge, defensive, not deferential. That pile was coming down anyway. "Dog sick got us here, but without muscle." "Enough," Hale cut in, radioing evac for Vasquez. Medics swarmed, Carter stabilizing her as they stretchered her out. The handler gripped his arm briefly. "Finish it," Rex knows. With Vasquez airlifted, the drill shifted to contingency, Carter shadowing Rex under Hale's direct oversight. The dog remained vigilant, paw insistent. The team excavated carefully now, Voss relegated to perimeter, minutes stretched, sweat beading under helmets, the air heavy with tension thicker than dust. Finally the mannequin emerged, transponder intact, casualty pristine. But the cost, Vasquez's injury, logged as operational, would trigger review. Debrief convened under the site's awning as the sun peaked, casting harsh shadows. Hale paced. Notebook open. Alert confirmed, but interference compromised safety. Voss, explain the override. The specialist stood at attention, jaw set. "Intended assist, sir. Beam was unstable. Protocol allows path clearing." "Protocol specifies zones," Hale countered. "You crossed into K-9 primary. Result, handler down." Carter, bandaging a minor cut on his own hand from the scramble, spoke up. "Sir, Rex's alert was clean. The push destabilized it. If not for the dog's fix, we'd have lost the mark." Eyes turned, handlers nodding subtly, engineers neutral. Voss's gaze hardened on Carter. "Medic's not handler chain, sir. He's speculating." Hale's pen tapped once. "All input logged. Medical review for Vasquez. Voss restricted to base duties pending inquiry. Dismissed." As the group dispersed, the whine of the returning helo cut the air. Vasquez's status relayed. Stable, sutures needed. Carter knelt by Rex, the dog leaning into his touch, warm fur damp under the grey muzzle. The shepherd's eyes held steady, a bond forged in the moment's breach. Back at base, whispers circulated. Voss's uncle in logistics might pull strings, but the incident was witnessed, documented. Carter felt the weight shift, his defense, once quiet, now public. Duty had demanded report, conscience had amplified it. In the rigid lattice of command, one exposed fracture could demand repair, or widen to break the whole. The kennel lights burned low that evening, casting elongated shadows across the concrete runs where the dogs paced their cooldowns. Carter entered quietly, the door's latch clicking softly behind him. Rex lifted his head from his bedding, tail thumping once in recognition. The medic checked the water bowl, then sat on the edge of the run, reviewing the incident report on his tablet. Hale had approved his addendum. Interference noted. K-9 alert pivotal to success despite hazard. It was procedural, restrained, but a line drawn. Outside, gravel crunched under approaching boots. Voss appeared at the wire, face illuminated by the floodlight's glare. "Heard you're filing extras, Doc. Stirring pots in a tight unit?" Carter rose slowly, meeting the gaze through the mesh. "Facts, specialist, not stirring, reporting." Voss leaned in, voice low. "Facts are that dog's on the clock. OSS eval next month. Push this, and you're the one who looks soft, defending a has-been over-chain." The words probed, testing resolve. Rex rose beside Carter, a low rumble in his chest, sensing the tone. The medic placed a hand on the dog's shoulder, grounding them both. "Chain protects the mission. Rex is the mission. Back off." Voss straightened, smirk fading into something colder. "Your call. But Uncle's talk?" He turned away, footsteps fading into the night. Alone, Carter stroked Rex's muzzle, the grey hairs coarse under his fingers. The dog's nose nudged his palm, warm and trusting. In the silence, broken only by distant patrols, the medic weighed the path. Escalate to formal complaint, risk retaliation, stay silent, let protocol erode. The survivor from days prior echoed in his mind, a life pulled from impossibility. Loyalty, it turned out, wasn't just to orders. It was to the quiet truths they sometimes obscured. As the base settled into nocturnal watch, Carter knew the reckoning had begun, not in rubble, but in the unyielding code that bound them all. The base command center buzzed with the low thrum of fluorescent lights and the intermittent chirp of encrypted radios as the inquiry convened 2 days after the joint op mishap. Air thick with the scent of fresh brewed coffee from the adjacent galley mingled with the faint, lingering trace of gun oil from the armory next door. Captain Hale presided from the head of the long oak table, his uniform crisp, insignia catching the overhead glare. Flanking him were Major Ellis, the battalion XO with a reputation for procedural rigor, and Lieutenant Commander Reyes from medical oversight, her notebook open to a grid of incident timelines. The room's walls, lined with maps and duty rosters, seemed to close in, amplifying the weight of every word. Carter stood at ease in the witness line, his medic insignia pinned neatly, hands clasped behind his back. To his left, Vasquez, bandaged calf elevated on a stool, testified first, her voice steady, recounting the beam's shift and Rex's unwavering alert. The shepherd waited outside in the handler's vehicle, his presence a quiet undercurrent felt even through the reinforced door. Voss, summoned last, entered with measured steps, saluting sharply before taking position. His face held no trace of the kennel knight's chill. Instead, a practiced neutrality masked the tension in his squared shoulders. "Major, the override was precautionary." Voss began when prompted, his tone clipped and professional. Sector 4 showed instability on visual. Rebar stress points. Demo protocol allows field adjustments to facilitate search. No intent to compromise. Ellis leaned forward, pen tapping a rhythm against his pad. "Adjustment or incursion? Handlers report you entered primary without clearance. Result? Sergeant Vasquez injured. Drill aborted at 0932. Voss met the gaze evenly. "Sir, in real ops, hesitation kills. The dog's sit was noted, but the path needed clearing. Medic Carter's involvement escalated it unnecessarily." All eyes shifted to Carter. Hale nodded subtly, permission to respond. The medic drew a measured breath, the room's dry air scratching his throat. "Sir, my actions followed medical protocol. Immediate assessment of the handler. The destabilization occurred prior to my arrival. Rex maintained alert throughout. Without his indication, the target would have been lost under the shift." Reyes interjected, her voice precise. "Private, your addendum mentions a pattern. Elaborate." Carter hesitated a fraction, the moral fulcrum tilting. Duty bound him to facts, not accusations that could fracture the unit. But conscience, sharpened by the rubble pulls and kennel standoff, demanded clarity. Endurance drill prior, Specialist Voss introduced a loose block into Rex's path, adding 30 seconds to circuit time, logged as error but consistent with comments on the dog's age. OSS evaluation pending. Such disruptions undermine team efficacy. The room stilled, the clock's tick marking the silence. Voss's jaw tightened imperceptibly, a subtle flex of restraint. Speculation, sir. Banter in training builds resilience. Rex performed no harm. Ellis exchanged a glance with Hale. This isn't about banter, specialist. It's chain integrity. K-9 assets are mission critical. Dismiss perceived liabilities at your peril. He closed his notebook. Inquiry suspended pending full review. Voss, temporary reassignment to Motorpool. Carter, continue medical oversight. Vasquez, light duty until cleared. As the assembly rose, salutes snapping in unison, Carter caught Voss's sidelong glare, a promise of unresolved friction. Outside, the morning sun pierced the overcast, warming the tarmac where Humvees idled for routine patrols. Vasquez limped to the vehicle, Rex leaping down to nuzzle her hand, his grey muzzle brushing her palm with gentle insistence. "He knew you were coming back," she murmured, clipping his leash. Carter fell in step, the trio moving toward the medical bay for her follow-up. The bay's sterile hum greeted them, beeps of monitors, the sharp tang of antiseptic wipes. Carter directed Vasquez to the exam table, gloving up to recheck the sutures. Clean, no infection, but mobility limited for another week. Rex settled at her feet, eyes tracking every movement, his nose occasionally lifting to sample the air for reassurance. "You're clear for desk work," Carter said, peeling off the gloves, "but stay off uneven ground." She nodded, but her expression held the weight of the unspoken. Inquiry's just the start. Voss's uncle, Colonel Hargrove, handles logistics audits. If he leans, Hale might fast-track Rex's retirement to smooth it. Carter paused, stowing supplies in the cabinet with deliberate care. The medic's oath extended to prevention, not just response. Rex's logs show no decline. Olfactory tests last month, 98% accuracy. Pushing retirement now ignores that. Vasquez stroked the dog's ears, the fur soft and silvered under her fingers. Protocols blind sometimes. Handlers fight it quiet, petitions, extra evals, but with Voss stirring, it goes public, careers tangle. The door swung open then, admitting Specialist Tara Klein, a handler from the secondary team, her uniform dusted from morning PT. "Captain wants you both in briefing. Contractor's family arriving for thanks. Media embed from Post Public Affairs." Her eyes flicked to Rex. "And the dog's the star." Carter felt the shift from internal fracture to visible ripple. Public reckoning, as the manuals termed exposure beyond chain. They loaded into the staff car, the drive short under a sky clearing to blue. At the helipad, the contractor, Mark Ellison, mid-40s, crutches under his arms, waited with his wife and a public affairs officer. The Black Hawk's rotors had just spun down, its hum fading to echoes. Ellison's face lit as Rex trotted forward, the shepherd sitting politely at the edge of the tarmac, tail sweeping the concrete. "You saved me, boy," Ellison said, kneeling awkwardly to offer a hand. Rex sniffed it, then licked once, a rare concession, his eyes steady. Cameras clicked from the embed, flashes reflecting off medals and wind-tousled fur. Hale stepped up, speech concise. "Team effort. K-9 assets exemplify precision under pressure." But as the family posed with Vasquez and Rex, Voss's absence noted by the group, whispers circulated among the handlers. Klein leaned to Carter, words spreading. OSS board might review early if this hits channels. The medic nodded, watching Rex lean into Ellison's pat, the dog's body language a study in quiet assurance. Back in the bay that afternoon, Carter logged the encounter, Positive exposure for the unit, but a spotlight on the veteran. Hale summoned him alone then. The captain's office sparse, desk, flag, a single window framing the parade ground. "Ellison's pushing for recognition," Hale said, handing over a commendation draft. "Rex gets the nod, but Voss filed a counter, claims your addendum's biased, medic overstep." Carter stood firm. "Sir, facts stand. Interference patterns, risk ops." Hale's gaze held, appraising. "I know, but reform starts internal. Petition for Rex's extension. I'll back it, quietly." The order was clear: navigate morality through channels, not confrontation. As Carter exited, the base's rhythm resumed, boots marching in distant formation, a dog's bark cutting the air. In the kennel later, he found Rex alone, Vasquez on duty rotation. The shepherd rose to greet him, muzzle nuzzling his knee, warm breath a reminder of bonds unbroken by doubt. Night fell with precision, stars pricking the desert sky as patrols lit the perimeter. Carter lay in his bunk, the day's tensions coiling like rebar. Duty preserved order, conscience demanded justice for the overlooked. Rex's legacy, grey-muzzled and true, now intertwined with his own, a medic's quiet defiance, rippling toward institutional shift. Tomorrow's evals would test it, but in the silence, loyalty whispered louder than commands. The evaluation board convened under the stark fluorescence of the battalion conference room, its walls panelled in polished oak that absorbed the low murmur of assembled officers. The air carried the faint metallic tang of polished brass and the subtle undercurrent of shoe leather from the line of chairs. Outside, the Nevada wind whispered against the windows, rattling the blinds in irregular cadence. Major Ellis chaired the session, his face a map of creases earned from years of audits, flanked by Colonel Hargrove, Voss's uncle, his logistics insignia gleaming, and a veterinary liaison from the K-9 training center at Lackland. Captain Hale sat to the side, notebook open, his posture unyielding as the group's anchor. Rex lay calm at the room's threshold, Vasquez beside him on a low stool, her bandaged leg extended. The shepherd's grey muzzle rested on his paws, ears flicking at the shuffle of papers, but he held position without a whine, years of conditioning rendering him a sentinel of composure. Carter stood in uniform beside the handler, his medic kit stowed in the anteroom, hands folded at parade rest. The inquiry had escalated swiftly. Voss's reassignment hadn't quelled the ripples. Instead, the contractor's commendation and media embed had drawn higher scrutiny, transforming internal friction into a formal OSS review. "Commence with asset assessment," Ellis directed, his voice resonant in the confined space. The vet liaison, Captain Lang, rose first, tablet in hand, displaying Rex's longitudinal data. Scent trials, field confirms, biometric trends. Subject 12 years, 3-month service, olfactory baseline, 96% retention, above threshold for extension, no degenerative markers in recent MRIs. Age-related mobility decline minimal, endurance logs confirm. Hargrove leaned forward, his fingers steepled, eyes narrowing on the screen. Retention figures are historical. Recent ops show variance. Joint drill alert delayed by debris interference. Efficiency demands forward projection, not sentiment. Vasquez shifted slightly, her hand dropping to Rex's collar in a gesture of quiet support. The dog's nose lifted briefly, sampling the room's tension, then settled. "Sir," she interjected evenly, "Rex's alerts in the contractor extraction and endurance runs were uncompromised. Interference was human, not K-9. Ellis nodded her on, but Hargrove's gaze flicked to Carter. "Medic, your oversight logs, elaborate on the pattern cited." Carter met the colonel's eyes without flinching, the weight of the room pressing like a field pack. His voice remained measured, honed by countless briefings. "Sir, 3 incidents logged. Endurance block displacement, joint op-beam override, and prior commentary undermining team cohesion. Vitals post each. Rex at 98% efficacy. Human factors introduced risk. 30-second delays, injury to handler. Protocol 47 K-9 prioritizes asset protection. Dismissing age ignores proven utility. The vet liaison interjected, scrolling to a graph of detection curves. Data supports. Grey muzzle correlates to experience, not decline. Retirement at 12 risks unit capability. Replacement training cycles average 6 months. Hargrove's pen tapped once. A sharp punctuation. Logistics perspective. Rotations optimize resources. One asset's extension cascades. Budget reallocations. Handler burnout. Voss's report notes medic overreach. Is this defense or bias? Hale cleared his throat, entering the fray with captain's precision. Sir, Private Carter's input aligns with medical chain. No bias. Facts from direct observation. The contractor's survival underscores Rex's value. Media coverage amplifies unit readiness. The room paused, the clock's second hand sweeping audibly. Ellis reviewed the packet, pages rustling like dry leaves. Outside, a Humvee convoy rumbled past, its engine growl filtering through the glass. Rex's ears perked, then relaxed, his steady presence a counterpoint to the debate. Carter felt the moral tension coil tighter. Duty to chain urged deference to Hargrove's influence. But conscience, forged in the rubble's grit and the dog's unwavering sit, demanded advocacy. This wasn't just Rex's fate, it was the institution's, where loyalty to partners tested the rigid lines of command. Recommendation, Ellis stated finally, closing the folder. Extension granted, provisional, 6 months with quarterly evals, specialist Voss, formal reprimand, cross-training reassignment. Full report to battalion by 1600. Hargrove rose without comment, saluting crisply before exiting, his footsteps echoing down the hall. The tension ebbed like receding dust, leaving a hollow quiet. Vasquez exhaled softly, stroking Rex's flank as the dog rose to follow her out. Held the line, she murmured to Carter, her eyes meeting his in shared relief. Hale lingered, gesturing Carter aside in the corridor where the base's midday bustle hummed, soldiers double-timing to posts, the distant bark of training dogs. Solid testimony, Private. Hargrove's pull bent, but didn't break. Petitions in. Rex stays. Carter nodded, the weight lifting incrementally. Sir, the pattern, Voss, reprimand enough? Hale's expression hardened subtly. Enough for now. Watch flanks. Reforms incremental. You've sparked it. The afternoon unfolded in routine cadence. Carter in the medical bay, restocking kits with mechanical efficiency, the scent of gauze and saline grounding him. Vasquez brought Rex for a standard check, the shepherd hopping onto the scale with practiced ease, weight stable, coat glossy despite the silvering. As Carter auscultated the dog's heart, the steady thump echoed his own resolve. You're clear, he said, clipping the file, but stay sharp. She smiled faintly, the first unguarded expression since the injury. Media's running the story tomorrow. Veteran K-9 saves civilian. Ellison's pushing for a plaque. Fossil stew, but it's public now. Word spread through the detachment like radio chatter. Handlers in the mess tent exchanging nods, a subtle shift in posture when Voss passed. His reassignment to motor pool evident in the grease stains on his sleeves. That evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the parade ground in amber, Carter walked the perimeter with his thoughts. The wind carried the faint whine of a sentry dog, and in the distance, Rex's silhouette trotted beside Vasquez during her light-duty rounds, grey muzzle lifted, alert to the horizon. In the barracks, Klein cornered him by the lockers, her voice low amid the clatter of gear. Heard the board. You called it out. Clean. Voss cornered me earlier, griping about medic heroes, but the unit's talking reform. Petition for OSS policy tweak. Age caps revisited. Carter stowed his boots, the leather still warm from the day's wear. Not hero, just facts. Rex earned it. She nodded, fist bumping his shoulder lightly, a rare breach of formality. Earned us all a mirror, chains stronger when it bends for the right reasons. Night settled with the base's ritual, lights dimming in waves, generators thrumming steadily. Carter lay on his bunk, the thin mattress creaking under him, replaying the board's close. Hargrove's tap had been a warning shot, but the extension was a victory, small, procedural, but real. Voss's reprimand rippled outward, a quiet enforcement of respect. Yet conscience whispered of costs, careers shadowed, alliances tested. Rex's legacy, once dismissed as grey irrelevance, now gleamed in commendations and whispers of change. As sleep edged in, broken by the occasional patrol's crunch on gravel, Carter envisioned the path ahead. The final eval loomed, but the fracture exposed demanded mending, not through defiance, but disciplined persistence. In the military's forge, integrity wasn't loud. It was the steady paw on rubble, pointing true amid the storm. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Liam Carter reach those who still believe in honor. The months following the OSS board blurred into a cadence of routine patrols and incremental audits, the base's rhythm unbroken, yet subtly altered by the ripples from that fluorescent-lit room. Dawn revel echoed across the Nevada flats with the same precision, boots thudding in formation under a sky streaked with contrails from overhead flights. But in the 47th Detachment's briefing tent, the air now carried an undercurrent of quiet scrutiny. Handlers reviewing not just scent logs, but policy memos on asset longevity. Captain Hale had circulated the extension approval battalion-wide, framing it as a case study in efficacy over chronology. Rex's grey muzzle, once a punchline in sidelong glances, became a fixture in training visuals. Projected slides of his alerts overlaid with data curves, proving the value of experience in layered environments. Carter moved through his duties with the medic's steady focus, his kit heavier now, with expanded K-9 protocols, new EpiPens calibrated for age-related sensitivities, hydration monitors synced to olfactory stress. The reprimand against Voss held firm. The specialist's reassignment to motor pool stretched into cross-training with supply chains, his uncle's influence checked by the board's documentation. Whispers in the mess tent noted Voss's subdued posture, no more jabs, just clipped responses during joint briefings. Carter crossed paths with him once during a routine convoy prep, the infantryman's hands black with grease as he checked tire pressures. "Clean logs, Doc," Voss said flatly, eyes on the gauge, no smirk in sight. Carter nodded, the exchange a fragile truce forged in consequence. Vasquez returned to full duty by week's end, her limp fading as Rex shadowed her every step, the bond between them, a visible emblem of resilience. The contractor's plaque arrived via certified courier, a polished bronze disc etched with the incident date, mounted in the detachment's ready room beside unit commendations. Ellison's family visited once more, this time with a Foundation rep advocating for veteran K-9 programs. They posed with Rex under the floodlights, the dog's paw print inked onto a certificate that Vasquez folded carefully into her file. "He's more than an asset," she told Carter later, as they hosed down the training field after hours, water sheeting off the concrete in silver streams. "You made that clear." The reform sparked quietly, as all institutional shifts did. Hale's petition climbing the chain, endorsed by Major Ellis for a pilot extension program. Quarterly evals for Rex became a template. Not just physicals, but integrated simulations, blending human oversight with canine instinct. Carter found himself mentoring a fresh medic rotation, his testimony anonymized in a training module on interference mitigation in mixed ops. The module screened during orientation. Grainy footage of the joint drill, blurred for security, narrated with procedural calm. "One disruption," the voiceover stated, "can cascade. Loyalty to protocol includes defending the unseen strengths. New arrivals nodded, eyes on the screen, absorbing the lesson without fanfare. Public reckoning came in measured waves. The media embed aired as a segment on base public affairs. 30 seconds of Rex's sit amid the rubble, Carter's gloved hands stabilizing the contractor, Vasquez's voiceover on trust. No drama, just facts. In high-stakes search, experience detects what youth overlooks. Views ticked up on the Post's channel, comments threading from active duty families to civilians tracing the story's reach. Hale fielded a query from higher command, his response concise. Unit cohesion enhanced. Recommend broader OSS review. The reply came back affirmative. A directive for 6 detachments to trial age cap variances, data pooled from the 47th's logs. Carter's transformation unfolded in the subtleties. A salute from a handler held a beat longer, Klein inviting him to co-lead a K-9 vitals workshop. No medals pinned his chest, but the weight of legacy settled in quieter ways, the knowledge that his stand, born of conscience amid orders, had bent the system without breaking it. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the Sierras, casting long shadows over the kennels, he walked Rex during Vasquez's shift rotation. The shepherd trotted at heel, grey muzzle catching the fading light, his nose questing the breeze for scents long familiar. "You're the measure," Carter murmured, hand brushing the dog's flank. Rex leaned in, a low huff of acknowledgement, their steps sinking in the cooling dusk. Back at base, the final quarterly eval convened in the vet clinic, Lang presiding with her tablet updated to the latest curves. Rex performed flawlessly, alerts on layered scents, endurance holding at 92%. "Extension confirmed," she logged, stamping the file. Vasquez clipped the leash, her eyes meeting Carter's over the dog's head, a nod of shared victory. Outside, the parade ground lay empty, floodlights humming to life as patrols began their circuits. Voss passed at a distance, hauling crates to the motor pool, his glance averted but posture straight. The fracture mended, not erased, reform's quiet work, ensuring the chain held stronger. In the barracks that night, Carter reviewed the detachment's updated roster, the names a testament to persistence. Duty and morality, once at odds, now aligned in the institution's slow evolution. Rex's legacy rippled outward, a symbol of moral strength where vulnerability met resolve. The system learned, incrementally, that true detection pierced beyond stone and protocol to the conscience that guided the poor. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of a medic tease the K-9's grey muzzle until the dog detected a survivor buried under the rubble. See you in the next one.